Hey guys, today I decided to revisit Battlefield Hardline to take a look at it in retrospect. Why was it considered by many to be a failure of a Battlefield game, and more importantly, is it worth picking up and playing today? I'm going to answer both of those questions in this video. This was Visceral Games' final project before they shut their doors in 2017. Hardline decided to take the series in a bold direction, swaying away from the military warfare that Battlefield players had come to know and love, replacing it with a world of crime, heists, and policing. Instead of playing as one of two nations, you now play as either the criminals or the police, essentially cops and robbers. I always thought the whole idea sounded kind of cool, a little bit zany perhaps, and that's definitely reflected in the outfits of the criminals, the different melee weapons, and the fact that you can drive around blasting music out of your car's stereo system. Although Hardline is different in some ways, many of the core Battlefield elements remain. Similar classes, objective-based game modes such as Conquest, and typical weapons that you would expect to find in any modern-day military shooter, as well as some that you wouldn't, like handcuffs or a taser. It's just set in a differently themed world. So why was it met with such resistance, particularly by the PC community? In some ways, I think Hardline was simply a victim of the times. A large part of the reason is that it came fresh off the heels of Battlefield 4, a game that is now widely regarded as one of the better Battlefield games and was still running on full steam at the time. It had had most of its bugs fixed, all the DLCs had been released, we had more free maps and weapons coming via the CTE or community test environment, and it was just a really great game. And now here comes Hardline less than a year and a half later, begging for our time. On top of that, Hardline had many striking similarities to Battlefield 4, such as reused art assets. For example, this multi-level car park I'm currently running around in. Anybody notice that from Battlefield 4? Yeah, I thought you might. It's also found in Flood Zone. The UI also looks super similar, and all of these things caused players to look at Hardline as a reskin of Battlefield 4, something that should have been sold as a DLC and not a full-priced $60 Battlefield title along with a $50 premium service. It was also missing a lot of the vehicles that Battlefield 4 and previous games had. There are no jets in Hardline, there's no attack helicopter, although the scout heli has been fitted with a gunner seat as a sort of mash-up combo between a scout and attack heli, and there are no tanks, LAVs or attack boats, arguably some of the things that make Battlefield, well, Battlefield. They also relegated the LMGs, rocket launchers and lock-on weapons to battle pickups rather than equipables, further reducing player weapon and gadget choice. Now that's not to say they didn't bring any new vehicles to the table. There are armoured cars for both sides with gunner seats, kind of akin to the MRAP in Battlefield 4, and the aforementioned scout helicopter as well as a transport heli. But I can't help feeling a little underwhelmed using these vehicles after having just stomped people in an A10 Warthog in Battlefield 4. Hardline also introduced sports cars for the criminals or police cars for the law. There is a much bigger emphasis on speed and a faster pacing to Hardline than in previous games. I have to say I did appreciate the urban environments that Visceral Games created. It was nice to fight over a fancy penthouse or an LA downtown area for a change. Most of the maps were much smaller scale than a lot of the big open Battlefield maps, which lent themselves well to Hardline's new game modes, which were pretty unique and enjoyable. Blood Money was a bit like Capture the Flag, but instead of stealing flags, you stole each other's money. And then you had Hotwire, which was a high-speed chase where cops chased down criminals and tried to put an end to them, usually at the end of an RPG or a breaching charge. Unfortunately, these days, the server choice, at least on PC, is pretty much limited to a couple of Conquest-only servers, so the ability to play these new Hardline game modes is pretty much non-existent, although there could be plenty of servers still running on console for all I know. Okay, so let's talk about the campaign for a moment. Battlefield campaigns aren't exactly renowned for their storytelling, and Hardline is no different in that respect. In fact, it was one of the main critiques by reviewers when it originally released. But it's obvious that Visceral spent a lot of time and resources on this campaign. The voice acting is good, as is the motion capture, and I can't help but chuckle sometimes at how cheesy the whole thing is. It feels like being stuck inside an episode of CSI Miami, and I am playing Horatio Caine. The campaign features episodic crime dramas where choices will change situational outcomes and gameplay experiences. As a cop, players can use multiple police gadgets and personal equipment, so the scanner is used to pinpoint your targets, log evidence, tag alarms, and listen in on conversations. You can throw shell casings to distract guards, and you can flash your police badge to encourage your enemies to lay down their weapons and surrender, instead of just shooting them in the face. These sorts of stealth mechanics are not things you would typically find in a Battlefield campaign, but it still makes for an interesting change. Hardline definitely wasn't all bad. It just couldn't stand up to the might of Battlefield 4. I really feel that if this game would have released now, after a couple of historic World War themed Battlefield games while everybody is crying out for another modern title, that people would have received the game much better. So, is Hardline worth playing in 2020? Well, if the game was still sitting at a $60 price tag, I would tell you to go and play Battlefield 4 instead, as that is, at least in my opinion, a better game than Hardline in almost every way, and graphically they look very similar. However, currently the base price for the game is €20, and at the moment there's a special Easter sale on Origin where you can pick up the game with 75% discount for only €5. Now, for some bizarre reason, the premium edition of the game still costs €25, even with the discount, so I would definitely steer clear of buying premium. As I mentioned before, on PC there are only 2 or 3 servers running at most times anyway, and 2 of those don't run any of the DLC maps, so you'll be hard pressed to actually take advantage of premium. But yeah, for €5, I would say the campaign is probably worth it alone, and if you're somebody who started playing Battlefield with Battlefield 5 or Battlefield 1 and have yet to check out any of the Battlefields with a modern setting, you might want to give Hardline a look. So there you go guys, hope you enjoyed this retrospective look back at Battlefield Hardline. Leave a like down below if you did, subscribe for more content, and I will see you guys in the next one. Cheers.